Hey guys, James with TFBTV. Today on TFBTV, talking about one of my most favorite subjects of all time, Star Wars, single stack 9mm. Today we're looking at the 6 most efficient single stack 9mm. You guys saw my video from last week. We did the top 6 most efficient double stack 9mm handguns. This time we're talking about the most efficient single stack guns, and that is which guns give you the most capacity of 9mm for their size and for their weight. I've made a spreadsheet with a bunch of data that I'm sharing with you in the description. Don't ask me where the freaking form is. Don't ask me, hey, what was number 7? What was number 8? Just go down to the form. Just go down there. Find it. It's in the description. But I spent 10 minutes in the last video explaining the spreadsheet. We're gonna go over it quick, just in case you found this video as like a single serving and you don't wanna go back to the original video and listen to 10 minutes of explanation. Here's just a brief explanation. Guys, if you already watched the most efficient double stack video, just skip forward a couple minutes. So we've got make, model. That's pretty self-explanatory. Width, we have height. That is, how tall is the gun? If that number is in red, that means that it's more than 5.1 inches tall. We do not consider a 5.1 inch or taller gun to be a compact gun. So it's not included in the rankings. With single stack guns, there's only 2 guns that don't meet that definition. That is the Walther CCP and the, of all things, High Point C9. All the other guns in single stack are 5.1 inches or smaller. We arrived at that 5.1 inch number because we did a poll of our viewers. 80% of our viewership agreed that compact guns should be 5.1 inches or shorter. We've got capacity. That's the capacity with a flush fit magazine. Then we have a little bit more tricky numbers. We've got the footprint here. That's the square inchage of the gun, if you will. That is the height times the width. We used height times width to make the footprint to determine how efficient these guns were. James, why didn't you include length? We didn't include length because length is the easy part to conceal if you're going to carry muzzle down, which is what like 98% of us do anyways. And for that matter, you get ancillary benefits with longer slides, such as longer sight radius, better ballistic performance from your barrel. Moreover, longer guns are going to be penalized in weight. They're going to weigh more, so you don't really have to factor length in and they still get penalized. You've got weight with an empty magazine, then weight with a loaded magazine of 124 grain 9mm. Then we have rounds per square inch. So that is that footprint. How many rounds fit in that footprint of height times width? Those are the guns that are the most spatially efficient. If you don't care about how heavy the gun is or how efficient it is for its weight, then just use this. Use rounds per square inch, leave it at that. For single stack guns, a good score is 1.6 rounds per square inch. And I'm gonna say briefly that double stack guns are going to be much more efficient than single stack guns, albeit not as compact. That's because you're gonna have like the same barrel for the most part. You're gonna have functionally the same slide, maybe a little bit smaller slide. A lot of the same components that you find in a double stack gun are going to be in a single stack gun. Double stack guns just add a little bit more weight in the frame and they get a lot more capacity. To put it into context, total efficiency scores that are good, like really good, for double stack guns are upwards of 1.2, like 1.2 and higher. Here, there's like a hard cutoff of 0.5. If it's got a total efficiency score of lower than 0.5, it kind of sucks. How do we get to a total efficiency score? We multiply the rounds per square inch by rounds per ounce. Rounds per ounce is really where the single stacks get dinged, where you had rounds per ounce scores higher than 0.5 for the double stack guns. Here, if you're doing better than a 0.3 for a single stack gun, that is 0.3 rounds per ounce of weight, you're doing all right. If you only care about weight, just look at rounds per ounce. If you only care about size, just look at rounds per square inch. If you're like me and both are equally important, then use the total efficiency score. Let's roll right into the list. Number 5 and number 6, we have a tie. And it's funny because to me, it's like one of the most economically priced bang for the buck guns and one of the most Gucci, definitely the most expensive gun on this list are tied. It's a great juxtaposition at number 5 and number 6. And that is the Bond Arms Bullpup and the Ruger LC9S. Let's talk about the Bond Arms first. I reviewed this a while back. I think it's a fantastic little gun. It's called the Bond Arms Bullpup because it uses this strange operating system. You load the rounds into the magazine like nose down, and it's got this little kind of device, this contraption that lifts the rounds backwards out of the magazine and up into the barrel. That means that this is one of the most spatially efficient guns for barrel. So you're talking about the same length barrel for the Bond Arms Bullpup, about a 3.5 inch barrel, which is the same as you would have in the Glock 43 or the Glock 43X. However, the Bond Arms Bullpup is only 5.1 inches long, as opposed to 6.2 inches long for a Glock 43 or Glock 43X. So it's unique in that respect. You can get a lot more barrel and a lot shorter length. So if length is important to you, the Bond Arms Bullpup's one of the best ones out there. It's a very efficient gun. It's only 0.96 inches wide, 4.2 inches high, with a 4.03 inch footprint. It holds 7 rounds. You get 1.74 rounds per square inch for the Bullpup, which is one of the best on the chart. It also gets a respectable 0.34 rounds per ounce. This gives it a total efficiency score of 0.6 exactly. Thing about it is, I wouldn't say picky, but more picky than your average gun. It won't cycle some types of ammo. They have an exhaustive list on their website of the ammo that will work with this gun. So it's something to be cognizant of, and it's got an MSRP of $1,100. Extremely well made, clever design, but man, I would say at $225 street price, the Ruger LC9S is probably one of the best guns on this list. It's very compact. The Ruger LC9 kind of sucked because it had this weird double action trigger. However, the Ruger LC9S is now striker fired. It's got a much better trigger. It's a very simple design with a hardened steel slide and a one-piece fiberglass frame. It's 0.9 inches wide, 4.5 inches tall, with a 4.05 inch footprint. It's got a 7-round capacity like the Bullpup. It's only 17.2 ounces empty and 20 ounces loaded. It holds a very high 1.73 rounds per square inch, and you get 0.35 rounds per loaded ounce with this gun, giving it a total efficiency score of 0.6. And I would say everything 0.6 and higher is excellent in terms of single stack efficiency. Moving on to our number 4, the KAR P9 and the KAR CW9, which is like the economy version. I go into this distinction in some detail in my prior reviews of the KAR PM9 series, but there's not really much of a difference between the budget priced CM9 or CW9 and then like the standard P9 or PM9. KAR has been doing it longer than everybody else. Their emphasis from the outset, at least since like I was in high school, they were one of the only ones focusing on efficiency-based single stack 9mm, and they were making good ones. I remember the early ones kind of had some teething issues, but KAR always made sure that they were reliable. I've had to send a couple back to the factory, and for the longest time, you guys even remember this like 5-6 years ago when TFBTV first started, KARs were like the only guns that I carried. Back then, KARs were the most efficient, highest quality pistols, and so I had a big thing for KARs, and I still do. I still think they're fantastic guns, but their market has been eaten up very drastically by big box brands like Smith & Wesson coming out with the Shield, Glock coming out with the 43 and the 43X, so on and so forth. It's really eaten into their market share that they used to have a monopoly on. Anyways, they're good guns. The P9, very efficient with only 0.9 inches width, 4.5 inches tall, with a footprint of 4.05 inches and a 7-round capacity. It weighs a mere 16.9 ounces empty. You get 1.73 rounds per square inch, again, very high, 0.36 rounds per ounce, and a 0.61 total efficiency score, barely beating out the LC9S. I'll tell you this, the KelTec PF9 is also on this list. I think the KAR P9 is essentially getting the same thing that you get from the KelTec PF9. The P9 is just going to be slightly larger, but you're going to have a much better trigger, much better quality, and all around a much better gun. So I think like the CW9 and the P9 represent a great value if you want something that's a little bit more boutique-ish than some of the other less expensive offerings on the list. Moving on to number 3, the Diamondback DB9. I've never even handled one of these. They don't look that attractive, and I didn't want to say anything about these guns without knowing much about them, so I reached out. I reached out first to one of, I won't name any names, but he is a very well-known gun dealer who owns a very popular gun store, and I asked for his comment, and I will read it to you. When there are Shields, Glock 43s, P365s, and a million better single stack and staggered mag CCW pistols, there's no reason to buy a DB9. If someone made a hardline argument that all you have is like $200 and you needed a concealed carry gun and ammo, it does have some good attributes. That's the thing, is this gun, it is very small and it's very inexpensive. It's one of the cheapest guns, if not the cheapest gun on this list. He did say that they're all the way up to a Gen 4, and they've only been out for like 5 or 6 years. In such a short amount of time, this has got to be bad. This isn't like, hey, Glock has a Gen 4 or a Gen 5, so what's the big deal? Well, Glock took 30 years to get to their 4th iteration, through methodical customer feedback and improvements. The Diamondback is in Gen 4 after like 5 or 6 years, in comparison to the Beretta Pico, which has been around the same time, and which this dealer says is equally bad. It has Glock compatible sights, which is kind of cool, and it has better purchase, better grip than a Pico for not much of a size difference. But he closes his email out by saying, but again, just buy a f***ing P365 or Glock 43X with a shield mags, something else, not this. Just to be sure, I also reached out to the gun scholars at 4chan's K board. So I made a post about the DB9 on K, and I got a bunch of helpful advice. I do not trust anything that cheap. Look, not saying I don't agree with it. They suck, I like that, and idiots. So about the same amount of help, more or less, that I get from asking people questions on K. Notwithstanding the fact that this wasn't the most popular gun, it is definitely one of the smallest. 0.9 inches wide, 4 inches tall. It's got a 3.6 inch footprint, which is tied for the smallest footprint on the chart. It weighs just 13.4 ounces empty, which makes it the lightest gun on the chart. It holds 1.67 rounds per square inch, and you get 0.38 rounds per ounce. So it's the number 3 most efficient single stack 9 on the market today. Number 2, moving up to the KelTec PF9. The KelTec PF9 would have been the top gun on this list had I gone with the specs from KelTec's website. But with the KelTec P11, for example, which they say weighs 14 ounces, it doesn't without the magazine in. And all of our weights, we try to use magazine in because the magazine's a central component of the gun, and that should go towards its total weight. So for the unloaded weight, KelTec said that weight is 12.7 ounces, and according to the results that I found online, I don't have a PF9 anymore, I used to. What I've been seeing is everybody's saying that it is really 14.6 ounces unloaded. So that took it out of contention for the number 1 spot. Like I said, I had a KelTec PF9, but the main reason I got rid of it, while it was very small and it was one of the only options back in the day, the trigger was god-awful. I mean, not only was the gun hideous, especially I got Wallet Brown. Do you guys remember that when they made a frame called like Wallet Brown? I just bought it because it was cheap, because it looks literally like somebody put dog poop into like a Jell-O jiggler mold or something. Pretty ugly gun, but it was really lightweight, very appealing, very inexpensive, and then I took it out at the range. I'm like, oh my God, this thing's reliable, but this trigger is awful, and I can't hit shit with this gun. Sights are terrible. Totally unimpressed with this gun. That's when I went with the P9 and the PM9 instead. But at 0.88 inches, it's the narrowest gun on the list. It's only 4.3 inches tall, and it's got the smallest footprint of all the 7-round guns at 3.78 inches of footprint. This gives the KelTec PF9 a very high total efficiency score, and it is the 2nd most efficient gun on the list. Before we finish this list out with number 1, brief intermission, story time. There are 2 rules, 2 general rules that we abide by here on TFBTV. That is, if it feels like more than 2 fingers, it's probably a dick. And if it's a top 5 or top 6 list, number 1 better be a Glock. People say, James, you're a Glock shill. You know, you cheated like the double stack list. You know what won the double stack list? The Glock 43X with 15-round magazines. That's the 15-round shield magazines. Everybody got super upset that I use third-party magazines, but these are flush fit, reliable magazines that I've reviewed. I didn't see a problem, and for that matter, I even said in the video, look, if you don't like it, then just, fine. If you don't want the most reliable, most efficient gun on the list, fine. Just totally ignore it and go with number 2, which was the Rex Delta, also a fantastic pistol in its own right. But Glock, with the 43X and the Shield magazines, they took a single stack gun, they made it accept double stack magazines, Shield Arms did, and it's a beautiful, beautiful mixture. It is like peanut butter and jelly of guns. But a lot of people got upset and said, okay, well, I feel like you should have used the 13 round magazines for the Hellcat and the 12 round magazines for the 365. No. Like for the SIG 228, for example, that is a factory 13 round gun, but for the SIG 228, Metgar, the OEM, they make 15 round flush fit magazines. So I used 15 rounds for that. Nobody said anything about that because it wasn't in the rankings. That said, again, I totally understand it, but it isn't like a flush fit magazine is some huge modification to the gun. There were people saying, oh, it's a slippery slope, and James, you did this to bring the Glock 43X to the top of the list. Guys, this is the same formula that I've been using for like 4 years. I started doing this, making this chart in 2016, I think, maybe even before the Glock 43, the original Glock 43 came out. So this has been the same formula. I didn't tweak anything so Glock would win. And for that matter, I'm not a Glock shill. I think even you guys that call me a Glock shill, no, I'm not a Glock shill. Am I a Glock fanboy? Yes, absolutely. Do I receive money from Glock? No, absolutely not. For that matter, true story, I have visited the Glock factories in Smyrna, Georgia, and in Deutsch Wagram, Austria. I've been to both of them, seen them with my own eyes personally. They don't even let you take cell phones in there, so I don't have any pictures or video, of course, but you guys saw videos from me being there in December for the Glock 44 reveal. So I go to Smyrna. They're like, hey, James, we'll pay for you to come to Smyrna. It's like, all right, well, flight to Atlanta, 1 hour flight to Atlanta, and one night at a hotel in like Buckhead or something like that. Tab ended up being $700. So I wait, and they never pay me back. And they're like, oh yeah, you know that Glock 29 SF that you used for your bear guns video with night sights? You just keep that, we'll call it even. It's like, okay, well, whatever. Not sure that that's an exact fair trade, but it is what it is. And you know what? I got to see the factory in Smyrna, so I don't care. Austria, I think I paid $2,000 for that flight. Glock's like, dude, we're gonna reimburse you. I send my reimbursement back, I send the flight back, I go over to Austria, they pay for the hotel room. I'm there for like probably a week, around a week. Had a fantastic time, like being in Vienna around Christmas time with all like the Christmas markets and drinking the Turbo Punch, like getting ripped on Turbo Punch and eating schnitzel and shit like that. Had a blast. Like I really enjoyed myself. But $2,000's kind of stout, right? So I send Glock the reimbursement. That was like in December. And they haven't said shit to me about it, and I don't think they ever are going to. I don't think they're ever going to reimburse me. So for those of you who say that I'm a Glock shill, it's total opposite. I am constantly being cucked by Glock, but here I am still loving them. They're still one of my most favorite brands out there, and I am still living my childhood fantasy in paying Glock money to go and visit them and talk about their products. I try to be honest with you guys, and when I have a personal bias, I let you know. That said, there is no personal bias with the Glock 43X not only being the #1 for double stack with the Shield S15 mags, but the #1 for single stacks. And there's a reason why. By the way, I didn't include the Glock 48. We're just gonna kind of lump it in together. The scores weren't really that much different between the 43X and the 48. But there is a reason why. Again, I've been using the same formula since day one, since the Glock 43X was around. So this isn't manipulation or anything. If anything, the 43X has kind of manipulated its way into victory because you get 10 rounds with the Glock 43X with a polymer frame. And that's the trick with polymer guns. You can add so much capacity just by adding a little bit of plastic at the bottom of the gun. And that's part of the reason why we omitted every gun over 5.1 inches from the compact double stack list. We said, look, this is not a compact. If you look at the Glock 45 or the Glock 19X, they weigh less than an ounce more than the Glock 19, but they hold 2 more rounds, so they have much higher efficiency scores. That's because all you have to do is add less than an ounce of polymer, and it makes your capacity go up tremendously. With the example of the Glock 43 versus the 43X, so the Glock 43 is a single stack that has virtually a lot of the same dimensions as the 43X, even uses the exact same slide and barrel as the 43X. The frames are a little bit different dimensionally, and of course the 43X is certainly longer. The 43X only weighs 0.7 ounces more than the Glock 43 because all you're adding is like a little bit of plastic. However, it's got a 10 round capacity versus the 6 round capacity for the Glock 43. The fact of the matter is, this is like, I think the only 10 round single stack gun on the list, and it's just gonna win because it's still like compact or subcompact. It's only 1.1 inches wide. It's only 5.04 inches tall. It's got a 5.54 inch footprint. It weighs only 18.7 ounces empty, 22.7 ounces loaded, giving it 1.8 rounds per square inch, which is sky high, probably the highest on the list. 0.44 rounds per ounce, also probably the highest on the list, giving it a total efficiency score of 0.79, the highest on the chart. Oh, I take that back. There is one other 10 round gun, and that is the High Point C9, but it has been excluded because it's taller than 5.1 inches and it's heavy as shit. So yeah, guys, the Glock 43X wins. It doesn't win because I'm a Glock shill. I mean, I'm glad it won. Am I glad? Hell yeah, I'm glad it won. I love the Glock 43X. It's my daily carry. It is one of the most efficient guns out there, and that's part of the reason why I carry it. Not only is it reliable, but it's uber efficient. It's the most efficient single stack, and with double stack Shield S15 magazines, it's the most efficient double stack. It is what it is. It's just the numbers. I mean, if you don't like it, that's fine, but you know, don't get upset at me. I still love you, even if you're upset and you're like, here we are, James, with a Glock at #1 again. I still love you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you to our Patreon supporters. This program couldn't be independent. I mean, I got reimbursed my $2,000 out of the Patreon. You know, I wrote the editor. I was like, dude, I got hosed for $2,000, but I got us all this sweet content from Glock in Austria. So I got reimbursed because of Patreon and Subscribestar. I could not have gone on that trip and sprung $2,000 to go to Austria, but for you guys supporting us. So please, please, please do us a favor. That's the kind of stuff it pays for. Support us at subscribestar.com/TFBTV or patreon.com/TFBTV. There's also a very good chance that you could win a gun. We give away 1 gun a month for every 500 supporters that we have on those platforms. Thank you to our sponsors, Top Gun Supply, your online shooting sports superstore, and Ventura Munitions. They are the best ammo store online. We give away 3 Blue Alpha Gear belts a month on Patreon and Subscribestar as well. But most of all, thank you guys. Thanks for putting up with me. Thanks for laughing with me. And thanks for nerding out with me, going over this crazy chart. Guys, I will bring you more compact 380s coming soon. Take care.